Hey guys, it's me, James, and I've been thinking about this. Which tabletop RPG is the best RPG in the world? Now, I thought I'd go on Google, look for some listicles, and see what people are thinking and tell you they're wrong. The problem is, I think we're kind of past the point of listicles on the internet, at least for this subject, because I had a hard time looking for some. But it doesn't matter because no matter what would come up on top on any of these lists would be wrong. Because the only scientific way to prove which is the best tabletop RPG is to put them in a Hunger Games simulator and see who comes out on top, which is what I did. Now, I use the default settings for this Hunger Games thing. I believe it's by Brent Steely. I don't know. There's going to be a link in the description box. You had to pick 22 contestants. I went with all tabletop RPGs, of course. I got the top 22 games ever. Now, I know what you're thinking. James, clearly you just picked out games from your bookshelf, from actual plays you listen to, from the zeitgeist of the internet. And I'm going to tell you, you are wrong. These are scientifically proven to be the top 22 games of tabletop RPG in all of history. And if your favorite game is not on here, you're clearly wrong. Your favorite game is not as good as you think. Now, you can absolutely get into the comment section, write what your favorite tabletop RPG game is, and say why it should be on this list. Maybe you'll change my mind, but you'll never change the mind of science. Let's get into the top 22 contestants for this Hunger Games simulation. So it seems that the Hunger Games, which also disclaimer, I know nothing about. I think the main character is a girl who does archery, who may or may not be an elf. It sounds like a fantasy game, and she does bows and arrows. It sounds like she might be an elf. But again, I don't know anything about the Hunger Games. But it seems to be a bunch of districts, like 12 districts, and 2 players for each district. So I've kind of paired some of these guys off. Kind of. You'll see what I mean. But District 1 is going to be our kind of Fate district. I put up Fate Condensed, but Fate Condensed is going to act for all, like Fate as general. And then I put one of my favorite Fate games on there, Breakfast Cults. District 2 is going to be Forge in the Dark games. So we, of course, have Blades in the Dark and Scum and Villainy. District 3 is going to be the One Roll Engine games. Godlike, which was the first One Roll Engine game to my knowledge, and also Monsters and Other Childish Things, which I kind of, I feel is definitely up there as one of the better One Roll Engine games. Here we have District 4, which I put the D20 games, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, though, again, it's all of D&D, and Pathfinder 2nd edition, but we can say all of Pathfinder and Starfinder and all that stuff. Hey, you want a fun fact about the number 4? The numbers 4, 14, and 24 are associated with death for Cantonese-speaking Chinese people, as the word for these numbers sound like the words for death, must die, and easy to die, respectively. Moving on to District 5. Here we have the percentile horror games, where I went with Call of Cthulhu 7th edition and Delta Green. District 6 is powered by the Apocalypse, so of course we went with Apocalypse World and Monster of the Week. District 7 is going to be Gumshoe Games, uses the Gumshoe RPG system. So I went with Fear Itself, which was one of the first Gumshoe games that was published, and I also went with Night's Black Agents. I think I was going to go with Trial of Cthulhu, but weirdly, I had a hard time getting a photo of that one. So Night's Black Agent, which is, also a very fun one of the Gumshoe game systems. District 8, which I'm calling the RPG with a twist games, I guess, where we have Dread and Fiasco. Dread is the one where you use the Jenga tower, and if it falls, your character dies. And Fiasco is the funny game that I'm sure everyone has seen in some form or another. District 9, I'm going to say this is the old school rules. I'm going to be honest, I looked into old school rules, realized it's not really where my tastes lie. And there's a game on here that I am not sure if it's considered old school's rules. I should have done a little bit more research, but let's get into them. It's Dungeon Crawl Classics and Morkborg. Yeah. Let me know if Morkborg is an old school rules game or not. So District 10 is going to be our solo games where we have Starforged or Ironsworn. Kind of consider that like one and the same. I just went with Starforged because I like that cover art a little better. And the other game is 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which, I don't know. I remember people talking about that game a lot. Are people? I feel like I heard a lot about that game, and then it dropped from the, from the discussions pretty quickly. But maybe I'm wrong. District 11 is going to be the world building games where I went with The Quiet Year, which was one of the very first RPGs I've ever played with my friends. And the other game in District 11 is Microscope. Again, I feel very classic world building type game. District 12 we're going to call the Greg Stolze category. One of my favorite game designers, and he co-made Unknown Armies, and he made Termination Shock. I need to read Unknown Armies one of these days. And Termination Shock just seems like a fun sci-fi game that I hope to run one day. But yeah, that is the 12 districts. That is our competition. We are going to see who comes out on top. So I kind of left all the options by like the defaults. I didn't want to mess around too much with it and break it. I am very tempted to turn on relationships, but instead, let's just keep it disabled and see how this goes. So the first scene is the bloodbath. As the tributes stand on their podiums, the horn sounds. Godlike runs away from the cornucopia. Again, I don't know a lot about Hunger Games, but I watched Minecraft Hunger Game videos, and I believe the cornucopia, if you don't know, is like a bunch of items that the contestants can grab, but if you go to grab for it, you might get killed. Yeah. Termination Shock cannot handle the circumstances and commits suicide. Fuck. I'll be honest with you. I have a couple on here that I'm rooting for, and Termination Shock was one of them. I was not expecting that. I also did like 2 practice runs of this, and this is the first time I'm seeing suicide. So yay for new things. Monsters and Other Childish Things runs away from the cornucopia. Fiasco runs away from the cornucopia. DCC runs away. The Quiet Year runs away. Fate takes a handful of throwing knives. Morkborg runs away from the cornucopia. Oh, this is interesting. Dread, Unknown Armies, Blades, and Call of Cthulhu share everything they gathered before running. That's an interesting bunch of alliance there. A possible alliance. Starforge runs away from with a lighter and some rope. Delta Green runs away from the cornucopia. Night Black's agent grabs a jar of fishing bait, while Scum and Villainy gets fishing gear. Interesting. 1,000-year-old vampire runs away. Monster of the week runs away. Microscope snatches a bottle of alcohol and a rag. That's a Molotov cocktail waiting to happen. Pathfinder runs away from the cornucopia. Apocalypse World, Breakfast Cult, and D&D work together to get as many supplies as possible. And Fear itself runs away from the cornucopia. We got some interesting things going on. Again, it is sad that we lose Termination Shock so early into the games. Day 1. Okay. Unknown Armies forces Apocalypse World to kill Scum and Villainy or Delta Green. They decided to kill Scum and Villainy. That really does feel like a Unknown Armies thing to do. Monster of the Week scares Fiasco off. Microscope attacks Blades, but they manage to escape. Pathfinder receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Morkborg begs for Godlike to kill them. That sounds like Morkborg. They refuse keeping Morkborg alive. D&D bashes Night's Black agent's head in with a mace. Again, very D&D of that. The Quiet Year chases Breakfast Cult. Call of Cthulhu and Monsters and Other Childish Things work together for the day. And 1,000-year-old vampire Dread Dungeon Crawl Classics start fighting, but Dread runs away as 1,000-year-old vampire kills Dungeon Crawl Classics. 4 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. For Termination Shock, Scum and Villainy, Night's Black Agents, and Dungeon Crawl Classics. How many of you were rooting for these guys to make it to the end? That was a bloody first day. So night 1. Unknown Armies accidentally detonates a landmine while trying to arm it. Delta Green, Starforge, Godlike, and Monsters and Other Childish Things tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. They lighten the mood as in the distance they hear Fate starts a fire. Morkborg tries to sing themselves to sleep. Fear itself receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Call of Cthulhu is awoken by nightmares. Microscope and Dread huddle for warmth. Breakfast Cult starts a fire. 1,000-year-old defeats Fiasco in a fight but spares their life. For people that know Hunger Games, why would you do that? Wouldn't you just go for the kill? Why spare their lives? The Quiet Year thinks about home. D&D and Pathfinder sleeps in shifts. Of course they would team up. Apocalypse World convinces Monsters of the Week to snuggle with them. Okay. And Blades questions their sanity. We are officially in day 2. Apocalypse World searches for a water source. Sounds like something you might do in Apocalypse World. The Quiet Year runs away from Fear itself. I would too. D&D overhears Call of Cthulhu and Morkborg talking in the distance. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to make a merge of the two. Delta Green, Microscope, and Monsters and Other Childish Things hunt for the other tributes. Starforge diverts Dread's attention and runs away. Finally, Monster of the Week forces Blades to kill either Fiasco or Pathfinder, and they choose to kill Fiasco. Come on! I'll be honest with you, if Pathfinder or D&D wins this, I'm going to be a little upset. 2 cannon shots can be heard in the distance for Unknown Armies and Fiasco. We're into night 2, and Godlike looks at the night sky. The Quiet Year receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Fate kills Morkborg with a hatchet. Not gonna lie, you would kind of think the reverse would happen, but go for Fate. Be proactive. Call of Cthulhu bashes Monster of the Week's head against a rock several times. Now, technically, it doesn't say they killed them, but I think they might have killed them. Breakfast Cult and Monsters talk about the tributes still alive. Well, it's dwindling, guys. Also, right now, Breakfast Cult and Monsters and Other Childish Things are kind of the top of my list of I want to win. Pathfinder fends Fear itself, Starforge, and Blades away from their fire. Microsoft and D&D sleep in shifts, and Dread tries to treat their infection. We're into day 3. Microscope tries to sleep through the entire day. Same. Pathfinder steals from Blades while they aren't looking. Delta Green stalks Apocalypse World. 1,000-year-old vampire begs for D&D to kill them. They refuse, keeping 1,000-year-old vampire alive. The Quiet Year diverts Godlike's attention and runs away. And Starforge tends to Fate's wounds. That's quite nice of Starforge. 2 cannon shots can be heard in the distance for Morkborg and Monster of the Week. So as a quick recap, we are down to 16 contestants. There have been 2 districts that have been wiped out completely. It's the old school rules with Dungeon Crawl Classics and Morkborg, both dead, and District 12, which was the Greg Stolze one, where Termination Shock and Unknown Armies dead. I am still rooting for Breakfast Cult, Monsters and Other Childish Things, Delta Green, Fear Itself, and The Quiet Year. Those are my top 5 of hopefully we'll make it. We are into night 3, where Starforge lets Fate into their shelter. Breakfast Cult begs for Call of Cthulhu to kill them. Oh, thank God, they refuse keeping Breakfast Cult alive. Breakfast Cult, get your head in the fucking game. The Quiet Year, Microscope, Delta Green, and Apocalypse World sleep in shifts. 1,000-year-old vampire stays awake all night. That sounds easy for a 1,000-year-old vampire. Godlike, Blades, and Dread cheerfully sing songs together. Pathfinder, Fear Itself, Monsters, and Other Childish Things get into a fight, and Monsters triumphantly kills them both. Fuck you, Pathfinder. Fear Itself, it's sad to see you go, but good for Monsters. Good for Monsters. We're into day 4. Microscope constructs a shack. Microscope apparently thinks this is Minecraft. Unless they actually did that in the Hunger Games, then I don't know. It just seems a bit not useful to do. Unless like the Hunger Games takes over like a period of like a year, but even if it's like a month long, like, is it worth making a shack? Like, sure, like a temporary shelter with leaves and stuff, but a shack. Delta Green runs away from Breakfast Cult. That's right, you run. I think I have a favorite out of this group. The Quiet Year sprains their ankle while running away from Godlike. Call of Cthulhu, 1,000-year-old vampire, Apocalypse World, and Fate hunt for other tributes. And Blade sets an explosive off, killing Starforge. I will say, in one of the games I ran, explosives can kill like 5 people at once. 3 cannon shots can be heard in the distance for Pathfinder, Fear Itself, and Starforge. As we go into night 4, Godlike and Delta Green tell stories about themselves to each other. Apocalypse World and Monsters sleep in shifts. D&D dies from thirst. I don't think anyone follows that rule in D&D. No. They just assume everyone has food to last them their whole lives. The Quiet Year screams for help, and Breakfast Cult dies trying to escape the arena. Get your head in the game, Breakfast Cult. You could have been the top dog. You could have been the top dog. But no, you had to try to run away. Day 5, Microscope, Fate, Call of Cthulhu, and Blades hunt for other tributes. 1,000-year-old vampire questions their sanity. I guess they did a new event and had to forget something from the past. Apocalypse World, The Quiet Year, and Delta Green start fighting, but The Quiet Year runs away as Apocalypse World kills Delta Green. 3 cannon shots can be heard in the distance for D&D, Breakfast Cult, and Delta Green. We're going to night 5, where Microscope sets up camp for the night. Call of Cthulhu shoots an arrow into Godlike's head. Quick, what's the damage of a bow and arrow in Call of Cthulhu? Godlike is probably still dead. Fate tries to sing themselves to sleep, while monsters, thousand-year-old, dread, the quiet year, and blades sleep in shifts. So we seem to be having the feast today. The cornucopia is replenished with food, supplies, weapons, and erratums from the tribute's authors. Apocalypse World strangles thousand-year-old vampire with a rope. Okay. The quiet year sobs while gripping a photo of their author. Call of Cthulhu, Dread, and Microscope start fighting, but Dread runs away as Call of Cthulhu kills Microscope, and Fate falls into a pit and dies? I was not seeing that coming. We're into day 6, where Blades discovers a river. The Quiet Year receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Apocalypse World sprains their ankle while running away from monsters, and Dread accidentally steps on a landmine. Fucking explosives. 5 cannon shots can be heard in the distance for Godlike, thousand-year-old vampire, Microscope, Fate, and Dread. We have 5 contestants remaining. They are Blades in the Dark, Monsters and Other Childish Things, Call of Cthulhu, Apocalypse World, and The Quiet Year. Night 6. The Quiet Year screams for help, while Call of Cthulhu is awoken by nightmares and probably screams in the distance. Apocalypse World and Blades in the Dark run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Monsters is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Day 7. Blades runs away from Apocalypse World. Call of Cthulhu sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. That kind of goes against Call of Cthulhu. You always investigate the bad stuff, but also the way to survive Call of Cthulhu is to not investigate the bad stuff. So I guess it's on point for Call of Cthulhu. No cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Everyone lived. The Quiet Year begs for monsters to kill them. They refuse, keeping the Quiet Year alive. Apocalypse World receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Blade taints Call of Cthulhu's food, killing them. I just realized I never picked who I want to win now that we're down to, well, I guess 4 people. But we're going to go with Monsters and Other Childish Things. I think that's just a fun game. Date. The Quiet Year picks flowers, while Apocalypse World picks flowers. Oh my god. Blades in the Dark spears monsters and other childish things in the abdomen. 2 cannon shots can be heard in the distance for Call of Cthulhu and Monsters and Other Childish Things. And now we are down to 3. Oh my god. Night 8. The Quiet Year, Apocalypse World, and Blades cheerfully sing songs together. One of you has to win by killing the other 2. Does this happen in the Hunger Games? Did the top 3 people just get together and sing songs before the next day? Fuck. I guess out of this group, I want to see the Quiet Year win. Apocalypse World sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Blades accidentally detonates a landmine while trying to arm it, and the Quiet Year tries to spear a fish with a trident. 1 cannon shot can be heard in the distance for Blades in the Dark. Okay. Night 9 is a sad night, as one of the contestants cannot handle the circumstance and commits suicide. That contestant was the Quiet Year, which means the winner and the best tabletop RPG in the world is the Apocalypse World from District 6 of the Powered by the Apocalypse game systems. Here's a screen of the placements. So Termination Shock was the worst of the 24 or 24? Yeah, I guess 24. And Apocalypse World was the best. And by districts, maybe if I am smart enough, I will list which of the districts were which in post. And the top kills were Blades in the Dark with 4, Apocalypse World with 3, Call of Cthulhu with 3, Monsters and Other Childish Things had 2, D&D had 1, Fate had 1, and Thousand Year Old Vampire had 1. And yeah, that's the tabletop RPG Hunger Games. That was fun. I kind of want to do this again with actual plays. I'm trying to think if I can come up with enough actual plays to do that. And maybe turn on the romance setting, because that would be funny. But if you watched all of this, thank you for watching all of this. Did your favorite tabletop RPG game system in this list win? Would you put other game systems on this list? Put a thing in the comments. Let me know. I'm curious. If anyone wants to run this, I will put a link to the website I used to do this. It's pretty simple to set up, and you can kind of do it with whatever you want. Doesn't have to be tabletop RPGs. You can set your whole friends to go out and be hungered gamed. Also, I think it has the website has other simulators. I believe there's a Total Drama Island one, which sounds like fun. But yeah, if you like this, give it a like. If you want to comment, leave a comment. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.